Hello, everyone. Welcome to our next episode of our Cincinnati Red Sim. We are at the start of spring training. I think there's a couple interesting storylines to follow. So let's pretty much get into it. First things first, the pitching staff. We know that Shohei Ohtani it will be on the injured list for the next 4 months. So we're looking at like a June, July-ish return for him. Really hurts. He won MVP last season. He's a game changer on both sides of the plate. He put up 8.5 WAR last year in 130 games. So really hurts, and I hope he can kind of come back and be, a reasonably the same pitcher is what I really want to say. I want him to be the same kind of pitcher. I think his hitting ratings will be fine, but the pitching is what scares me. So what happens here is everybody bumps up. And after Hunter Green's postseason showing, where he was fantastic, he's slotting in as probably our opening day starter. And that bumps everybody else up too. Luis Castillo's our number two. He's been giving us not great um, production, really. It's been good, not great. It's really like number three, number four type stuff. So he's going to have to he's going to have to shoulder a little bit more at the start of this year. Hunter Brown was really good for relative to expectations last season. He was like a five and dive type guy, which is fine because that's really how this team is built. It's been built on the strength of the bullpen, where we just need some length out of the starters and then we're pretty much set. But he had a really good season last year, so we're gonna trust him with a little bit more. Then we got Severino back in the fold. I did learn that player options, when they're retained, still end up being retained when those are exercised, which is great because I feel like it was different or like the screen was different in the last few games. But regardless, I know we talked about this probably in the last episode, but still, it's nice to get a good quality starting pitcher for 90% retained of 23 million. He's on the books for like $2 million this season. So if he's awful, then we can cut bait pretty easy. Our number five starter going into camp looks like it'll be Taj Bradley. He didn't really thrill me last season. His future could end up being in the bullpen. His stuff would play up. These pitches would play up. He could be like a stopper type guy, and he could be absolutely elite. But for now, I think he's got the inside track on the number five job. And then Juan Martinez looks like our sixth starter. He's probably destined for bullpen, to be honest with you, but he's got stamina. He could be a stopper himself. I don't like that he's developed a fragile injury proneness. Don't like that. But, this could be an elite back end of the bullpen arm. But we're going to keep him in the rotation for spring training. We're going to see what we get out of him. And he's limited to 18 batters faced, so that's only two times through the order. The bullpen, a bunch of the back end guys look like they're going to be the same. Lane Henderson, Rogers, Duvall, Giovanni Moran, and Garrett Crochet. But it's like the middle of the bullpen that's kind of different. But one big move I made was Mr. Edwin Diaz. We brought Edwin Diaz in. Last time I checked, he wasn't a fly ball pitcher, so that's kind of worrisome. But we got creative with his deal. He was kind of sitting around. So for this 1 year where I had some money, I gave him a $3 million deal. And then he has an opt out of the last 4 years at 14 mil. I got really creative to make this worth it for me. So even if he doesn't opt out, I can still get out from under it in years 4 and 5, theoretically, because this is a team option with a $2 million buyout. So really, it could be like a 3 year, what is that, $31 million deal for an elite reliever. That's pretty good. I don't think his deal is really that prohibitive if I was to try to move him. Um, and I accidentally gave him a no trade clause, which I just found out about now. Would consider a trade to Arizona, Atlanta, Boston, Detroit, the Mets, Philly, San Diego, St. Louis, Tampa Bay, and Toronto. So we could get out from under him his deal at a later date too. So uh, really helps the back end of the bullpen. Maybe Lane Henderson moves to a stopper role. Maybe I kind of like watching him rack up saves for the Mets. Maybe Edwin Diaz as the stopper, but uh, it helps fortify the back end of the bullpen a little bit. Chase Petty he'll be counted on to step up a little bit. Um, Good stuff. He's probably not a starter, but he's kind of bounced around a little bit. He hasn't been the best in his limited exposure at the upper levels of the minors and then his brief time in the majors. So I hope he can kind of put it together this year. Jeremiah Estrada was one of the waiver claims. Interesting stuff, not great control. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pitches, and only the changeup is about average. So I think he could be a good middle reliever for us. We traded for Nolan McLean. Really interesting profile. He hasn't been above Double A yet, so he's in spring training right now. I think he was on Minnesota's 40 man. No, okay, so he's still down in he's still on a minor league deal. But we gave up Nick Lodolo, who they really, really wanted for whatever reason. I figured it was fine to pull the plug on him. He had been good when we needed him to, but I liked the ability to get out from like a little bit of money and save a little bit of money, and gave up Lucas Malstead, who's could be something, but maybe not, right? And I figured let's get the sure thing, or the surer thing in my head at least for McLean. So he could also kind of hit, but it wasn't good enough for me to warrant keeping him as a two-way player. So really his stuff needs to bump and his control needs to bump, and then he'll be pretty much ready. So that was a fun little trade. Luis Frias, I think, was another one of the waiver guys. He's like a fringe depth type reliever. But it was really getting cheaper in the bullpen for every possible scenario I could. Nestor Laurent hasn't popped yet, but I think he still has time too. Adrian Hernandez was a waiver claim from Chicago. More interesting stuff. Don't like fly ball pitcher, but for league minimum guys, I think we did pretty well. And, Edwin Diaz helps replace some of like the Jalen Beeks type that we had to let walk. So that's the pitching staff until Otani comes back. And, these top four should be fine. Bradley, we have question marks. Juan Martinez is probably a reliever. So it's really just like a waiting game until Shohei returns. As for the offense, we have 5 catchers. What happened was I signed Danny Jensen to be the backup for $3.4 million. I thought that was reasonable. I liked that deal. I like his home run power, his discipline. He's a captain, and his defense is fine, right? His bat was terrible last season, but he's a backup catcher. It doesn't have to be great, and he's got those other intangibles, right? And then Jose Trevino was still available on the free agent market, and I said, that's suspicious. So, significantly better defender, also a captain. And so we got him on a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. So what happens is now we're probably going to end up carrying 3 catchers. Taden Hall is we're going to probably look to trade him and get some kind of value for a 23-year-old catcher whose bat looks like it might be okay. So we're probably going to deal him. And Eugene's probably going to be our 4th catcher on the depth chart and go down to AAA. So what I think the plan is going to be is Cade Hunter's probably going to start at DH or first or something like that. Trevino is going to start a catcher, and then Danny Jansen is going to back up Trevino. And so if we have a major injury, then we're ready. But the play could also be, see what we can get for Jansen or Trevino. Start Hunter at catcher, and then that frees up the first base DH slot, which we all of a sudden have a lot of players for. So that's the catching situation. I think making the decision to sign Trevino, I think the decision was also like, let me get as many good players on the roster as I can, and then figure out the roster crunch later. So even if Jansen, even if I don't know if he has options left, but yeah, he's got options left. So he could go down to AAA and be that depth. But if you look, we also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 first basemen in camp right now. Drew Bowser, looks interesting. He's a good, utility type player. His bat was great in limited exposure as a 23-year-old last season. Also, his AAA year was really good too. So we like having Bowser up. Collier will not start the season with us. He'll start probably in AAA. Once he got promoted from AA last year, he held his own, and so I guess he really just had to get moved along more aggressively than his ratings should suggest he should. Um, so Cam Collier, I think I'm going to start him down in like at left or second in AAA, but we're going to keep him in spring just to see what he can kind of do for us in spring training. Trey Morgan is still only 23. This power number is not great. None of his power numbers are great, but if he can be like a 300, 300, 400, and like 350 type guy, we would take that as a first baseman. So again, his AAA numbers were good last year, and then his major league numbers were not. So I don't really know what we're gonna get out of him this year. I really don't. But we're gonna give him some run in spring, and we're gonna see how that turns out. Palmegiani's probably the leader for our first base job. He was hurt for a lot of last year, and still put up 2 WAR and a 127 OPS plus. Still hit 16 bombs in 100 games, 83 starts. So the power numbers there, the bat is there. It's just, can he stay healthy, and can he not lose his job and not start cold for us this season is the real question. Miguel Perez we traded for. Looks like an interesting bat. I don't like the first base ish only type. He could probably slot to second, slot to short. Probably. Oh no, not even any outfield. So he could play, I guess, at second and third and short if necessary, but I wouldn't want him to. So he's a first base only type. We traded for him from Kansas City. He got a cup of coffee last year with them. And what we gave up was just Jimmy Herget. For whatever reason, they wanted this dude really bad. And so that's who they were willing to give me for him. And I said, okay. Yeah, so we also got him with $1 million because we needed some money for Ahmed Rosario, who we sent to San Diego. So really, we turned, Ahmed Rosario and $1 million into Miguel Perez. So it worked out for me. He'll probably start the year in AAA. I want this bat to develop a little bit. And then, with some kind of injury, he'll come up pretty soon. And then we signed Vogelback, who now looks very much redundant, but it's the same idea where we get good players and then figure it out after that. His last major league season, 2024, he put up a 124 OPS plus, and a lot of that was based on his on base percentage. And these KBO numbers, obviously we're not expecting him to put up anything close to this, but if he can be like this 2024 type, then that's a win. The home run power is good, the discipline's good. We're not going to get a whole lot else. So he's a real 3 true outcome type player. As for the middle infield, Noel V. Marte locked into like the second or third base spots. Matt McLean will probably play some left this year more than anything else, or maybe even right. Gleyber Torres we signed to back up. Hold on. We signed to back up the middle infield. He's fine at short if I needed him to, but I'd rather slide like Marte over. He'll play some third, he'll play some first, he'll play some second. Could probably play some outfield if I needed him to. So real, utility type. His deal is very cheap. It's a $1.6 million deal. So the bat is the question. The bat is always the question with him apparently in the sim. He was awful for Cleveland last year, but I figured this was a good buy low candidate. And then if he becomes redundant, then he could be a trade chip at the deadline. Ellie De La Cruz, our starting third baseman. Edwin Arroyo, our starting shortstop. And then outfield is interesting because we have 4 decent outfielders right here. We have Jay Allen, Fairchild, Ciani, and Cerda. And then we have Matt McLean in the mix. So we have 5 good outfielders. Fairchild is the most expensive right now. He's making 3.5. He's eligible for 5-3, so he could be a trade chip if everything else clicks. But for now, he's probably looking at a backup job with, I would say, Siani in center, and then probably Allen in left or right, Serta as the fourth outfielder, and then Fairchild is just probably redundant. I could probably get a good package for him, but he's also a good defender, so I don't really know if I want to do that necessarily. So if so let's build the lineup, right? This is the real question. And I know it's spring, so a lot of these guys, we got to trim it down to about, we got to cut 7. Two of these catchers, 1 and 2, uh, probably Collier, Bowser, that's 5, Perez is 6, and then it's one more from these guys. And that's the real question. Maybe Fairchild does get squeezed out. Maybe Serta goes down. I don't know yet, but let's take a look. So catching, what I think I'd prefer to do against righties is, I think, I think Trevino is the starter. I think that has to be what happens. And then it's probably Palmegiani. Okay. So that is what I'm thinking right off the bat. Palmegiani's a good defender at first. Not great, but good. And what that then does is it bumps Cade to DH. That's what happens, is Cade becomes the DH against righties. And if that happens, then there's not a whole lot of space for Morgan and Vogelbach. So can I get something for Vogie? Maybe, but we don't know yet. So let's just put Morgan there as the backup first baseman. That then makes Danny Jansen the backup catcher, and then Cade here, right? So that's the catching situation and probably the first base situation right here. Then it comes down to first base is good. Second base, who plays second? It's Marte, right? It's Noelvi Marte. It's not really close. Then I would say it's probably Ellie De La Cruz at third, Arroyo at short. These guys are pretty much penned in. Then is left, center, right are the 3 spots. Siani plays center because he's the best defensive center fielder in the game. And he's more than earned the right because he's been great every year that he's, existed in this game. So Siani plays center, and then it's left and right. And then the question is Jay Allen and Matt McLean. I think I'd rather have McLean in left because his defense is much better in left, and then I think it goes Jay Allen in right. So who gets squeezed here? Excuse me. Who gets squeezed? Vogie, Perez will be down. Morgan gets squeezed. Glaber's the backup. Fairchild and Serta all get squeezed. So I don't hate the idea of, his bat's been so good. I want to give him, a real opportunity. So maybe Fairchild is just the move anyway. Does he have options? Because then that might also change the calculus. He's got 1 option here left. So maybe he just starts down at AAA, and then if he mashes, we see what we can get for him. But I want to give Serta a real opportunity. He's 26. The bat's really good. The contact and the avoid Ks are kind of terrifying. So he's also a 3 true outcome player, but his bat's been good every year except what he did last year in the major league level, at the major league level. So what happens here is we probably have Glaber back up at second, at third. Marte backs up at short. And then as the secondary backup for when this becomes a problem, Bowser plays second if Glaber's already playing somewhere. So it looks like Bowser's probably like the backup middle infielder. And then, if Collier's mashing, then this just replaces and switches. And then that keeps Vogie here as like the first pinch hitter off the bench, or the first trade chip. Actually, that would be Trey Morgan as our first here. And then in the outfield, it's some combination of Serta and Fairchild, right? What I'm actually going to do for spring is I'm going to force start Cade in left because his ratings look like he could play in left, and I'd rather have the versatility. He's not a third baseman. He could play first and catcher, so having him do that might help. And Matt McLean doesn't need defensive reps anywhere really, so I don't feel the need to put him in a defensive position in spring. Jay Allen needs some defensive seasoning, I would say, in the outfield, so he can play. If I really wanted to, I could switch, Siani and Jay Allen, but I don't need to. And then that leaves Serta and Fairchild here, really to kind of figure it out between them. So this is probably what I'm gonna do. Fairchild, and in spring training, everybody plays anyway. It's not like these guys are not gonna get a fair shake. Fairchild, and then backup DH. I guess Vogie. I guess Collier. Who knows? Okay, so that's kind of what this looks like right here. If I were to plan for, this upcoming season with this roster, this is what I would look like. We're going to have some injuries. We're going to have some problems. We're going to have some underperformances, but this pretty much looks like what it'll be. Actually, Glaber can go here. Okay. Yep, perfect. All right, so lefties, I don't really see a whole lot changing here either, honestly. These guys, I have 3 switch hitters, 2 lefties, and 4 righties. That's really balanced. We're just going to copy and paste. We're going to copy and paste. And then we're going to run through some spring training. Pitching staff, Edwin Diaz, the closer, I suppose, 8th or later. High leverage. Chase Petty, middle relief. Strata, middle relief. Nolan McLean, long relief. Avoid high leverage. Mop up. Same probably with Morant, but you're the emergency starter. Hernandez. Let's see. That's so I can get this cleaned up. Gene Diaz, you're probably a middle reliever here too. Hernandez is a long reliever. Mop up. You're a middle reliever, and Frias is a long relief. Avoid high leverage. Mop up. So that's kind of what this looks like for now. I like Crochet as a specialist, but he'll have to move to middle relief at some point. And then I think you go to stopper, 7th and close, 7th and close, 7th and close. High leverage, and then Lane is the backup closer. So hopefully we can save some money on his arbitration this year. He's eligible for 6, so maybe we can get him down to 4.5, 5, but without the saves. So who knows? But this looks like a pretty good bullpen going into spring training. So I like what this roster looks like. As to some top prospects, Hector Rodriguez is probably going to need to get challenged to AAA this year, and he's going to have to put on a really good showing at AAA to warrant a look. Zach Maxwell had a good year last year at AA, I think. Yeah, he was pretty good. And then top prospects, we have some prospects. What did you do at AA? Not great, but your defense. This glove is what's going to carry you, RJ Mayer. Top prospects. We have the #1 prospect in baseball right now. Where is it? Organization. No, it's a. Oh boy, scouting. International. No, I forgot where to find this. I forgot. While I look, team chemistry looks great. We have 2 captains, we have 4 leaders, and we have 1 prankster in Glaber, but he's also a leader. So this looks great. Cohesion, everybody looks happy. Joey Votto has some good relationships, some bad relationships. It's mostly the pitching staff he doesn't like, apparently, which is hilarious. Player development. Here we go. Okay. We have the 7th ranked farm system. We have the top prospect in baseball. This is Johan Brault. He was my international free agent signing a few years ago. Last year, actually. Because I forgot that I spent a lot last year, so I didn't have a whole lot of money to play with this year. His ratings might be ready for rookie ball, so we'll see what the scouting report turns in. Brian Rijo is number 29. We already talked about him. He's 22. He's at high A. He might also be the kind of guy that needs to get challenged and just go right to AA this year, because he's like old enough that it's kind of what I think he's expecting. Um, so we're just gonna do it and live with the consequences. Cam Collier in Major League camp right now, to hopefully play. It's number 47. Trey Morgan's 120, and Cassius Thomas is 150. He looks like he's gonna be pretty good, honestly. So we'll see how he turns out. And then everybody else is pretty much just like down here somewhere. Yeah, this looks like a pretty good farm system. I don't like that this game ranks 18-year-olds as the number one overall prospect in the international complex. I don't like that, but there's nothing I can really do about it. Personnel, everybody looks great. I don't know if we hit it earlier. Mike Piazza is my hitting coach at rookie ball, which is really funny. His relationships, I think, were better, which I think is hilarious. That was the only real personnel change we had this year. Michael Hill is my scouting director again because Brody's the GM of Cleveland. Do you want an extension yet? Oh, heck yeah. Of course you do. Rick Jamieson, I will give you whatever you want forever. And Billy Wagner's my pitching coach. I don't know if we talked about that. That's really cool too. Oh, he was last year. That's right. Okay. So that's pretty much it. I think next video we'll get through spring training. We'll get through some of the storylines we talked about, and then we're really gonna get into it. And we'll get into the 2026 season. So thanks for watching, everyone. I will see you in the next episode.